Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Grappler Union podcast. Javier Plomo alongside Anthony Zito. Our guest today is Gideon Ray. Gideon is a former UFC fighter, a Taekwondo black belt, a black belt in Judo, a Jiu Jitsu black belt under Christian Uflacker, and the owner and head instructor of Gladiador Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Enjoy.
I need the 6 minutes. What happens in that 6 minutes?
You told me, using any technique that works, never to limit myself to one style. Keep an open mind.
We're not here to take part, we're here to take over.
In order to become more peaceful, in order for you to become better and strategize your life.
All right, we're live. Gideon Ray
How
in
are
studio.
You know, if I had to predict how this conversation was going to start, I would think it would start with like jiu-jitsu or early days MMA, but instead it started on a slightly different topic, didn't it?
Yeah. It certainly did. He walks in, he's like, who's a skateboarder? And then he names off 3 skateboarders, right? Christian Hosoi, Tommy Guerrero, and Steve Caballero, which are all 3 photos I have on my wall.
Yeah.
How amazing is that? I did not expect that.
It's crazy.
Beautiful pictures too, by the way.
Really neat. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're really neat. So, old school skateboarder.
Yeah.
That picture of you was... it was priceless. It's so awesome. It's so awesome.
Well, I'm finding myself more and more these days needing proof of some of the fantastic stories that I tell, So I'm just lucky that my brother sent me that picture because nobody believes it. You're like, yeah, I used to skateboard. Like, okay, sure you did. Back then, I'm sure they had metal wheels and the board's probably like a 2x4 or something.
I've seen that on Back to the Future.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I think nowadays the generation that everyone has a camera attached to them. Basically, they're taking photos of everything any time of the day. Where we didn't really have that. My friend, I don't share photos on Facebook. I don't do that stuff.
He does not social media at all.
But my friend Harvey sent me a photo the other day, and I gotta show you guys this because it's so ridiculous. And I'm like, man, I don't remember posing for that. It's so
this is some nonsense photo of you?
It's back in when I first started martial arts in 90. It has to be 92, somewhere in there, 93.
Wow.
Were you a little more hair back then?
It is so ridiculous.
Are you in like the JKD t-shirt and sweats? Or you?
Dude, I've got a full-on Rambo knife in my hand.
Of course you do.
that was hot back then.
That was, man. That or the katanas. Remember, like everyone would go to the flea market and buy the katanas and all those like butterfly knives.
Who went to the flea market? I had a Bud K catalog.
Remember the belt buckle ninja stars?
Yes,
of course.
Oh,
yes.
God. Yeah,
those ninja stars. Yeah, so yeah, I used to go to flea markets. That's where I grew up in Cicero. So flea market was like the thing to go to,
accessible
on weekends.
That was like the North Pole, man. Like Santa Claus headquarters. They had everything.
They have everything in those.
I used to go to the flea market up over in Stone Park. There, you know where that one is? That big...
No.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that some other time.
Look at that.
Oh, wait, that is superposed.
That's...
Is that crazy? That's great, man.
Is that great?
What do you mean you're not going to share this on social media? Our fans need to see this. That. Jesus.
That knife is bigger than you, man.
Wow. My Lord.
You see the collie sticks on the back?
Yeah, I definitely do.
But you know, that was a priceless time, though, man.
Yeah.
You think about what was going on at that time.
Right.
Your Steven Seagal movies, Jean-Claude Van. I remember going to the theater to watch Bloodsport.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was an awesome time, man. Rambo was hot. You were not cool if you didn't have a Rambo knife.
Right.
You know?
You're not. Yeah. You're not cool at all.
I had a little one. I didn't have the full size one. No.
Not the full
I had like an actual Marine Corps issue K-bar. It's like, oh, this is what they really use.
No, that's not
boring,
what I saw in the movies. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta have like some Predator machete and
that's so much fun.
With the LED lights by the handle, you squeeze the handle, it lights the blade up.
I still want that today.
Yeah, I know you do.
Oh man,
yeah, man, it's been fun. So you've had a long history of martial arts and everything. So let's start, man. Where'd you end? Where'd you start? Where'd you end? Where you at? All that fun stuff.
How much time we got?
We got lots of time.
How much time you got?
Yeah, how much time? You got the kid and the kids and the wife out there. So
Well, I tell you, man, I'll try to make it short and understandable. And I started martial arts probably when I was about 9 years old. I've taken everything from karate. I took kung fu for a short amount of time. So long ago, I can hardly remember it, right? I remember some of the techniques and stuff, but it seems like I spent a large amount of time in Taekwondo. Back in the days, that was super hot. You know, when I remember my parents taking me to look for a place to train, and we stopped by a few places. They didn't have all the fancy high kicks and the splits and all of that. And I'm thinking to myself, man, look, this is not what Bruce Lee does, you know?
Right.
And so, you know, we went to a Taekwondo school, and I'm watching this stuff. I'm like, this is great. That's what I want to do. So I ended up taking Taekwondo for a long, long time, man, like over 16 years.
Okay,
Had tons and tons of competition. Met some of my best friends through that system of fighting, and through some of the organizations back then, the USTU, United States Taekwondo Union. We competed for the Amateur Athletic Union, AAU. Had hundreds of competitions, man. State, national tournaments, Midwest tournaments. You know, so I would say that's where I started. And then shortly after that, MMA came on the scene, but I mean the old school MMA,
Right.
no weight classes,
Right.
no time limits, anything goes, and that stuff intrigued me. So I remember watching like UFC 1, UFC 2, and I'm thinking, what is this stuff? You know, this is great. Like you know, we had so many movies out back then, like Bloodsport and this and that. It just made all of that stuff just seem that much more glamorous. And so at the time that all of this stuff was coming out, there wasn't a jiu-jitsu school on every corner. No. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was at that time. You know, no jiu-jitsu schools, not a whole lot of places that cater to that kind of training. You know, no MMA schools or anything like that. So I remember watching that stuff and saying, man, I would like to try, you know, to compete in something like this, you know.
how was it competing in Taekwondo? How was that competition? What was the feeling in that time period? Where was it? Because I don't know any other competition other than jiu-jitsu, but in that time period for Taekwondo, was it like you're just in a gymnasium, and was it like Karate Kid style? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, I tell you, man. We did most of our competitions for the USTU, the United States Taekwondo Union, which you know, had the 3-minute rounds and stuff like that. So it really wasn't a lot of point competitions like the Karate Kid style, where a person hits you, then they stop and they put up a flag.
Right.
It wasn't any of that. They would run a time, you fight, and back in the days, things were a little bit more brutal than they are now. Like now they got all of this fancy gear. You dress up like
the chest guard and everything.
The Michelin tire, man. Back then, kids were getting knocked out, getting stuff that you can't do at the Park District. But it was probably one of the most extreme sports of its time, right? Because it was full contact. Kicks. You really didn't score a lot of punches for anywhere other than the body, and they had this thing called trembling shock, which they don't have in competitions today for Taekwondo. Trembling shock was a rule. And what that meant is if your opponent's body didn't move when you hit them, it was not counted as a score.
Whoa.
So when you blasted a roundhouse to the body, if their body didn't move, if you didn't affect their balance, if they didn't move, no trembling shock, no point.
Wow, that's interesting.
So yeah, it was pretty tough. And so with it being one of the most popular sports of its time, you know that the divisions were saturated. So now at a typical jiu-jitsu tournament, you're like, man, I have a stacked division if there's like maybe 8 or 10 people in a division, right? It was average 20 people in your division when you were competing for Taekwondo.
So that's 3-minute rounds? How many rounds?
Well, depending on what age you were.
Right.
But the point I was trying to make is that they just ran straight time. They didn't stop for like, he got 1 point, he got 2 points, let's stop and throw a flag up. They didn't do that. So if it was 2 minutes for like kids matches or 3 minutes for like Pan Ams or for a national tournament or something like that.
And then how they score it outside the match, like they do in the Ibjjf, where they have referees.
They have a scoring system. Like my memory is 52 pro fights. So if I say anything that's not right, don't hold me to it.
Nothing here is factual. Yeah. we say that all the time. Almost anything we say.
Don't hang your hat on that so much. Come on.
But I believe it was 2 points for the head kicks.
Okay.
Just a regular point for the body kicks and stuff like that. Yeah.
Man.
So, it was something else, man. We competed for a long time there. But after having so many competitions, I was a kid that always wanted to challenge myself because I knew I wasn't tough coming up. I knew I wasn't tough. I knew I wasn't strong. I knew I wasn't super athletic and stuff like that. So when I got involved in these competitions, I even tell my students, I had hundreds. I would make, let's say 200, right? I lost at least half of them. But that wasn't the point or the reason that I was there. The reason for me being there was to challenge myself and to get over the fear of fighting.
Right.
And so I can never do it enough, man. Kind of eccentric.
It's funny because you're like, I wasn't tough, I wasn't strong, I wasn't athletic. I mean, like, my introduction to you would beg to differ in terms of seeing you compete in MMA because you're this jack dude, you're tearing through guys, you win, you do the backflip. Like, what are you talking about? Not athletic. Actually, hold on, before I lose that train of thought. Okay, so your fight name's Gladiator.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is this because the backflip? Is this a reference to the Cuba Gooding Jr. movie, or a mad coincidence?
Oh, that's a mad coincidence. I saw that. That movie was awesome. That's old school, man. Yeah. But I tell you, I didn't give myself that name. It's pretty funny. I think I was getting ready to fight Derek Noble at the Hammond Civic Center.
Was that HFC? Or not back then?
No, I don't think that was. I think that was an Ironheart crown.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Remember Eric Moon with the Ironheart crown, and so I was coming out to fight Derek Noble. I don't think I had a fight name at this time, and so so my brother would take them, fight music and this and that, and talk to the person who's going to do the announcing. And so I'm standing out there waiting to walk out to the ring. And they're like, and in this corner, introducing Gideon, the Gladiator, Ray. And I'm the Gladiator. I look back at my brother. I'm like, okay, I guess
let's roll with it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, all right. And so, that's how we got that name. But that's a coincidence with the movie, though.
That's funny. That's so cool, man. Yeah. So then you started then MMA. This is like what? Early 2000s?
I think I took my first fight. It was either 1999 or 2000.
Okay.
Madonna High School.
Okay.
It's not even there anymore.
No, huh?
Tore it down. How about that? First fight was 1 10-minute round with a 5-minute overtime.
Okay.
These are back in the day.
Oh, this is back in the day, man.
Long before the unified rules, long before a Tough One made put UFC on the map a little bit more.
Right.
So that's some days.
And that was, it was so strange back then because think about it, like a lot of us didn't have a clue as to how to train and really get ready for these things. Like now everybody's a scientist, everybody's a professional athlete. They know I got to run this much, I got to lift this much, my diet's got to look like this. Back then, what you really had was just a bunch of tough guys that like to fight.
Right.
And so me personally, I didn't realize what a 10-minute round meant and with a 5-minute overtime. So this is how they scored. Either if you tap the person out, you win. If nobody taps out or gets knocked out, then it's a draw. So in a case that nobody tapped out or nobody got knocked out, then you go to a 5-minute overtime and see if we didn't have all the scoring and stuff like that. So I always tell this story to my students, man, is that you can never train enough, you can never condition enough. And I tell them that in my early fights, I didn't even start taking jiu-jitsu till probably after my 25th pro fight. So I told them the one niche that I had is conditioning. It's conditioning. So sometimes there's a lot of people that had more skill than me, had more know-how, wrestled a million years. I had zero ground. But my niche was outlasting people, burning them out and then trying to put the nail in the coffin there. But my first fight, man, I remember it. Coming out there, ding, 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 and we start swinging. Man, we walked to the middle of the ring. It was in a boxing ring at that time, and we started swinging, just throwing haymakers at each other, swinging for the fences. And I noticed, man, that I wasn't breathing. And I didn't notice that until I stepped back to take a breath. So we're in the middle swinging, bam, 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 bam. And so I'm like, man, that's got to be at least 9 minutes. So I back up to take a breath. I look over at the clock. Oh, we got 9 minutes to go.
That's 1 minute. Wow.
Oh man.
Oh, man. I've had that time dilation though. When you tearing it, you're the beginning of a match, you're going hard, and then the coach shouts out, 9 minutes. 8 minutes, whatever the round is, 5 minutes to go, and it's just like, oh, I thought that was longer. I thought that was so much longer. I felt like it did a lot of work.
I mean, conditioning for sure is a weapon. For sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. All day it's a weapon. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, but to have that thought process back then,
oh yeah,
is really, really good, because back then, man, recently I watched the Henzo documentary.
Okay.
Legacy, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's
that was
a great one. Yeah.
That was great, but I'm watching it, I'm thinking that time period, I'm like, fuck, these guys. And you see like the young Hodger Gracie in there.
Oh, yeah.
And, just thinking, man, the condition of what they were doing to their bodies and how they're just grinding it out and just
the sweat, man, they were so ahead of their times, right?
Yeah, so crazy.
Yeah,
crazy those days. You had to be really, really tough to stick it out in those days.
Yeah, I mean,
no doubt.
That was one of the things that like Tony was pretty famous for, was he put guys through just the meat grind. Cicchini, sorry. Okay. Just like the meat grinder in terms of conditioning. And if you couldn't last the conditioning, you weren't going to be able to last in the fight. No. So yeah, and we had plenty of guys come through that had experience in either mixed martial arts or kickboxing or whatnot that just couldn't hack the conditioning. Right. And it's like, well, he's not going to last around here,
Yeah. You guys know I started at MMA at Keith Hackney School.
Yeah.
And so now to take you a little bit farther back, I read a book called Inside the Lion's Den.
I got that book.
Long time ago. You remember that book?
Yeah.
So speaking of conditioning, remember Ken Shamrock had a tryout for you to come and be able to train at his school.
Okay.
You had to be able to run, I think it was like 5 miles and consecutively 500 air squats, 500 push-ups. You had this long list of things that you had to do just to be able to get in the doors to train with them.
Yeah. And then he would beat the shit out of you once you did start training with him.
That's right. That was part of the hazing, right?
Yeah. Oh, but and like it's funny because like Ken comes obviously from like a pancrase background. I think that was just something that came through like from the old school wrestlers. They would test guys to see like are you serious about this, that you're going to do that? Because I had that same experience, and I actually failed in the conditioning, but it was the fact that I kept with it and kept trying. Yeah. It was like, okay, he's serious about it. He's probably not going to come back tomorrow, but if he does, we'll do the same thing. And that's just the way it was. Honestly, like, we see this in kung fu movies all the time, or karate movies, where like the student has to like hold a horse stance for a long period of time, or do the wax on, wax off, whatever it may be. And it's that same sort of concept, as opposed to your typical jiu-jitsu school where you're just like, hey, I'd like to sign up. Okay, here's the contract. Jump right in.
Although I feel that I don't know if this is just me, but there's certain people in jiu-jitsu who are not your like they're dedicated, and they come often, and they're going to put their time in, and they're probably not going to compete, but they're going to do the workout, do the moves. They're fantastic to roll with, great. And then you have those few that are competitors and who the instructor knows he can push a little bit more and grind out a little bit more. And I kind of like that
separation,
that feeling. I like to go a little harder with, say my professor. Mm-hmm. He goes hard on me, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that he, beats the shit out of me every now and then. It's like I just feel like, okay, he knows that I want this. I don't have to verbally say, "Hey, make sure you go hard on me."
Right.
He just
Right.
go. He knows where to go
because he's
and where to push it.
observing.
Exactly.
Right.
He's got a good
and
feel.
then knows when I need to push it, when I need to amp it up.
Right.
He called me out the other day.
You
Not
kind of
gonna
being
lie.
lazy?
He's like, you go hard. I mean, it was open mat, but he was, you go hard on him like you go hard with me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I felt bad for the guy.
Were you with a lower belt at the time? Is that
was.
why? Oh. Well, he was probably testing the lower belt to see
For
if you-
sure. The
yeah.
lower belt, I mean, I had to put it on him. I mean, we're in the locker room.
Sometimes you gotta do it.
I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. I just had to amp it up, and I put it on. And he's like, no, dude, I get it. He goes, it's great, man. I like the train. I'm like, okay, cool. But maybe it's. And then I was thinking to myself, well, maybe he knows something. I mean, he sees something in that guy.
Right, probably does.
That
Yeah.
tells him that he needs to amp it up. Me amp it up on him, like he amps up on me, and then I'm like, okay, now I need to observe the room.
That's
like
right.
He observes that room, and that's really
part of being a
clever.
coach, yeah.
It's really interesting, introspecting into.
Yeah. And let's be very clear,
whole
like you were saying before, it's hard to run a successful school if you're catering it only to like the hard-nosed
That's right.
competitors.
Yeah.
There's not that many of them. A lot of them don't have that much money. Let's be
It's
honest
true.
here.
Yeah.
I didn't.
The guys that bring in the money tend, no offense, people, tend to be the more casual students, the more hobbyists, where it's like, hey, I've got a full-time job and I like to do this on the side, as opposed to the guy who's like, I have no money, but I can give you 7 days a week, 2 times a day, hard-nosed training.
That's right.
Right.
To have a successful school kind of takes a blend of the two.
It does, yeah.
It's very difficult to do it with just one or just the other.
Right.
Took me years to learn that. To
figure that out, right?
Oh man, yeah. We tried to run the MMA school first, and and you hit the nail on a head. Like I tell some of my guys that's coming up under me that the coaches at my gym and stuff like that teaching the classes is much like being a DJ. You have to be able to read the crowd. If you get out there and you start playing some off-center stuff that nobody's vibing to, then they're going to boo you out of there.
Right.
When you hit the mat, sometimes I even have techniques planned that I'm going to teach.
And you're like, oh, not this room.
That's right. And you get there and you look around, it's like, not today,
Right.
So, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. If you want to be successful, if you want to make sure you can pay some, I like that. That's cool.
Get from one of my students.
Yeah, if you want to pay some bills, man, you better be able to read a crowd.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's important.
So you were also on Tough.
Oh season 4.
Yeah.
Ancient.
How's that? How was that whole experience?
The whole experience? Like the stuff we didn't see on the cameras?
Of course. That stuff. Of course, the good stuff.
Yeah.
Stories.
It was a lot of stuff there, man. It was a brand new like season 4, right?
Right,
Just
yeah.
4 seasons in. It was new to a lot of people, new to the viewers, new to the competitors, and it was just strange living in a house with a bunch of fighters, especially when you're somebody like me. People that know me personally, they know I'm kind of a germaphobe, a little bit of a hypochondriac, and this. So that part, the competition, I wasn't worried about that. I was just worried about
Living with a bunch of slobs.
Oh man,
I can feel you there, man.
that was the only thing
See
I
those
had
palms are sweating over
That was the only thing that I had anxiety about on that show.
Right.
Was seeing underwear on the floor and people messing with your food in the
Right,
refrigerator.
right.
It's like, oh man. But aside from that, I think that that having that experience gave me a really, really thick skin to deal with stuff later on down the road where fighting was concerned. After being in that house under those conditions, cut off from the rest of the world, not being able to make phone calls when you feel like it, not having all the conveniences of home and people available to you.
What's the reasoning for that? I really don't. Like, why do they want you to cut off from the world?
I have no idea.
To get that anxiety, that craziness to come out? Is that what they're looking for? That drama?
I mean, it's some part of it's got to be just spoilers, right? Like you don't want to be talking about what's going on in the house, see your girl or your training partners back home, and then they're like, oh, this is going to go down, and let's.
I suppose,
yeah. So I mean, at
Distractions,
least some aspect of it has to be that, but yeah, they probably want to focus the guys, want to maximize tension.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
That's what
It's more
I
of a
think it
tension
is.
thing. More like, man, you don't know anyone there really, right?
Right.
You're just all strangers, and you're getting filmed, and then you can't talk to the people that you do trust the most, right?
You're going to have to fight them.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, I mean, everyone in that house is really your opponent for the spot, right?
That's right. I tell you, I think on season 4, I think we all kind of lucked out because a lot of us knew a lot of the guys there already before we got to the house because it was called the comeback.
Right.
So it was all veterans there. I don't think anybody had under 20 fights in that house at that time, as compared to other seasons. But yeah, I think that part of that reason is, like you said, to cut down on some of the distractions. But can't be the whole reason. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a full bar in there also.
Right. That's true.
That is also
So
conducive to
drama.
good television. Yeah.
Oh, we had some good times in there, man. And, some of the guys I still talk to every now and then. I still talk to Matt Serra every now and then and stuff like that, just to catch up. Jorge Rivera, I drop him a line every now and then, say, hey, what's going on? And it was great. It was a great experience, man. I liked it. Yeah, the fight between me and Edwin DeWeese, though, that was, you talk about hypochondriac. Man, it's, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember it.
One of the bloodiest fights ever in tough history. Oof. Yeah, so it used to make top 10 every year. I don't know if it still does, but it was a super, super, super bloody fight. And so there wasn't anything that made me want to tap out as far as the fight was concerned, aside from the blood.
The blood, huh?
Yeah, when the blood started pouring all over me,
Right.
I just wanted to crawl under the cage, out of the cage.
Yeah.
I think I was probably the first fighter in UFC history to call a timeout on my own. I'm in there, I'm putting up my hands, I'm like, hey, timeout. And so the ref comes over and he's like, what, are you quitting? I'm like, well no, I thought I was winning, but I need a towel to wipe his blood off of my face. I can't really see. And so he looked back like, can we do this? And it's like, okay. So they let us up. They go to the corner, get a towel. I haven't seen that done since. So,
That was definitely an on-the-spot decision, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I guess that's, if his blood is that much, right? What the hell?
I don't know what the rule is there.
Yeah, no.
This just happened. We're recording this right after Diaz Masvidal.
Right.
Okay.
Great
and
fight.
Yeah. Great fight. A lot of people upset with the stoppage. Obviously, the doctor has to make the decision based on what he sees. Mm-hmm. Okay. And just as cuts go, a cut above the eye is usually one that's going to stop a fight if it's bad, if they can't control the bleeding, primarily because of the concern of the blood getting in the eyes and disrupting vision. Yeah. So that's when you have a cut on your own body that's leaking into your what if you're being blinded by the cut on the other guy's body?
Exactly. Stop spraying me in the face.
I don't know what
It's weird, right?
I've never really thought about that. I've never seen, Yeah, that brings up an interesting point.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Like, blood in the eyes, like, whether you're getting blinded by your own or somebody else's. Right?
Yeah.
That's a weird one.
Well, they did it. You got
obviously.
So
but yeah, I don't know what the official normal ruling for that is. Like you said, I certainly haven't seen it since.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually they wait until, unless there's a stoppage for the other guy, being cut.
Right.
They usually wait until mid-round to clean you up, I think.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
I've not thought about that.
But how about that fight, though? Yeah. That fight was,
I don't remember the fight. I don't know why I can't remember this fight.
You've almost for sure seen it.
I watched all the toughs. Yes,
all of
I've
them?
seen
All of them?
Well, I don't think
all of them up to a certain point?
The ones that were in Brazil, I don't think I watched those.
Okay, well, yeah. Those aren't the easiest to access when they're in like China or Brazil or Mexico or whatnot.
The one with what's the guy who does this?
Vanderlei.
Vanderlei,
yeah.
The one that was in. I think I only saw like the outtakes of him and Chael, like when the
outtakes of him and Chael and Gabby Garcia standing towering over him,
making everybody look small, right? Oh man,
yeah, she's quite large.
I wouldn't want to fight her.
No. Let's establish this right now. I weigh as much as one of her thighs.
Yeah, she's pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, she just won. God, what is that now? Is that her fourth, or is it even more than that? ADCC gold medals. But yeah, she just competed in ADCC, and it's like there's only 2 weight classes for the women, and I feel so bad for those girls. It's man. Like nothing against Gabby. She can't find that many opponents that are actually her size, obviously. But like the cutoff is so low relative to how big of a girl she is.
Oh,
yeah. Don't get stacked, you know. Like
I tell you, man, a few times in my life, hearing some male chauvinist guys talk about women, or the combat sports is not the place for them, and this and that. Sometimes you just want to call up somebody like
Gabby,
like Gabby, and say, hey, come here, buddy. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to say it to her face.
Right.
Yeah. Amanda Nunes would be an excellent choice for that too.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Tell me how that works out for you. Okay, I'm going to go buy some popcorn. I want to see you do what you do.
Definitely sell that fight.
Man.
Yeah. Untrained dude against even moderately successful female MMA fighter.
Right.
That'd be primetime television. Right
that
there.
would be great.
For sure.
That would be great, man. Would love to see it.
So many of those meatheads are, when you go to the UFC events, you hear them in the audience, and you're just like, oh my God, I wish these guys would just shut up.
Yeah.
No idea.
He's usually sitting next to the guy that we've heard for years screaming, punch him in the face.
Right.
God, the punch him in the face, the kick him in the head guy.
Always that.
Or this guy. Stand up.
Stand him up. Oh, God.
I've been trying to do that for the last 10 minutes.
I know for a fact. I think it was probably like a outdoor war or something you fought at, and like it gets to the ground, and like it's like a fairly fast takedown in the fight, if I remember correctly, but immediately the chant starts, stand them up.
Yeah.
I'm like, what did you people come for? Like, did you think you were going to a kickboxing fight? Like,
Yeah, what are you talking? This is part of it. This is part of it. Yeah.
One day the fans will be sufficiently educated that we probably won't have to deal with that anymore, but it's probably 20 years out.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, as long as we're selling Miller Lite and Budweiser,
It'll never stop.
It's never going to stop. Like, if you remember the old Prides, right? You remember the old Prides? Man, they have 40, 50, 60,000 people in the audience, and you can hear a pin drop.
Amazing.
And the most noise was, obviously they popped crazy when the guys would do their entrance. Sometimes, during certain announcement phases of the fight and everything, action starts relatively quiet. Good move happens. Doesn't matter who's done it. Something nice and technical.
That's it.
The clap goes out. Yeah, I love it. That's how I want every event to be.
Oh, man, I was at one outdoor fight. I think it was in Colorado, man. My memory's failing me. But I just remember trying to suck in a deep breath and cigar smoke. Just
That's the worst.
on top of the guy screaming, punch him in the face and stand up. Well, that's why we're here. That's the objective. I've been trying to punch him in the face. He's been trying to punch me in the face.
Yeah.
And I have tried to stand up here. It's just not working today.
My stand up out from underneath him, not on point right now. Sorry to disappoint him. They have to do something slightly more technical.
Do you think they need? I mean, I know they have that John Wick movie, which incorporates a lot of judo and sambo and some jiu-jitsu. Do you think they need like a movie like Bloodsport, something to like Best the Best, something that really pumps up jiu-jitsu, like?
That would be
really
great.
would be.
I think they've tried a couple of times. It's a little
Don't talk
hard.
about red belt.
No, I'm just saying.
Man.
Don't say that.
Yeah. We got a lot in common.
I still want. I don't care about the safety restrictions. I still want a tournament where when you get tapped out by an arm bar, they tie your arm behind your back and you get to fight on. It's a terrible idea, but I want to try it.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, I'll watch that movie once.
Red belt? I think I bought it not knowing. So somewhere in my house that DVD exists. I'm like, it's a jiu-jitsu movie.
Well, you remember the trailer, man. They showed everybody. They showed Randy Couture. They showed Machado. They showed all these. You're like, man, this movie's going to be great.
Right.
And then you see like a fraction of a second of each of those guys, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but like I think they've. It's hard, it's one of those things, like even when they do like movies about wrestling, like it's mostly like big throws and like suicide cradles and all these crowd pleasing type moves.
Vision Quest
Vision Quest has more,
right?
Yeah.
Hey, That was a great movie, man.
Great
Yeah.
movie.
I still watch it like at least once a year.
I still holds up.
Yeah.
It still pumps me up when I watch. I'm like, man, I'm not even like
No,
into
definitely,
that, but just
definitely pumps me up.
remember Shoot?
Not
yeah, shoot. I mean, who would not? What a name like that, dude, as the bad guy. Shoot.
Oh,
man, it just
man.
sounds like
Carrying that log.
Carry that log?
Oh.
Anyone who is
The
listening
best.
to the Grappler Union podcast that hasn't seen Vision Quest, do yourself a favor. This is not just our nostalgia talk.
you're failing
although
at
that
life.
helps.
You're failing
that
at
helps.
life.
You are. You are.
Yeah, you have to, what are the movies that you have to have basically seen to watch to enjoy this podcast? You have to seen Vision Quest, Karate Kid, Choke, the documentary Choke.
Choke.
What
Best of
else?
the
Best
Legacy.
of the Best is up there.
Legacy, best of
Legacy's
the
good.
best.
perfect weapon.
Perfect weapon.
I mean,
Well, did you ever train sticks with Hackney, or was that already a full MMA phase at that point?
Well, I tell you, that's where I met Jake. Fight Chicks.
Okay, yeah.
Jake. Yeah, so I messed around a little bit,
Okay.
not a whole lot. And I got some friends that like James Stegan, JoJo, that does the Filipino martial arts, like the Kali Eskrima
Yeah.
Right.
and this stuff. So yeah, I've messed around. And after seeing Enter the Dragon,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, I picked them up once or twice.
of course.
Got it.
Yeah, for sure. I just brought 3 pairs of Kali sticks, 2 Manekos to the gym. Paul's like, Zito, I want you to show me some Kali. I'm like, all right. So I grabbed 3 pairs, brought it to the gym. I'm like, okay, I'll leave them here in a bag. He goes, well, are you going to come teach? I'm like, listen, man, start doing your alphabet. That's where we have to start. I go grab a stick and just sit there, and like this big wall is your piece of paper. The stick is your pen, and start doing the alphabet. Just do the alphabet before you want me to come and start showing you some stuff. Get acclimated to the stick.
It's
Paul Maloney, this is your wax on, wax on
That's right.
Off moment.
It's funny you guys should even bring that up. So we had an awesome seminar at my gym that was done by Professor Christian Uflacker.
Okay.
Came there. We worked footlocks for 2 hours.
Nice.
During that seminar, my buddy James Stegan, that does the Filipino martial arts, he showed up with this guy, and I'm having a brain fart right now. I'm an old guy with a lot of fights, but he was on the Perfect Weapon. If you remember, not the Perfect Weapon, the Human Weapon.
Okay.
Remember the Human Weapon?
Yeah, it was a cool
with,
show.
Jason Chambers in that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Where they would go around.
Yeah, they go around.
Train the
Yeah,
indigenous
training
martial
with
arts.
everyone else, right.
Yeah.
So my buddy James came in with this guy, with this really small Filipino guy, and he tells me, hey, man, you got to check out this episode. So he pulls it up on his phone, the Human Weapon, and you just type in Kali after that. And it shows him, man, putting a spanking on my man with the sticks. They're going all out fighting. At one point, he even took the stick from him.
Wow. Beautiful.
I'm like, wow.
We'll have to look that up
Yeah,
later.
you gotta
man.
look that up,
Yeah.
man. It's-
I know
it's-
for sure I've seen that episode, but I can't remember
I like
who
that
all they
show
had.
a lot.
Yeah, no,
That show
it
is-
It was
very
a great
good.
show, man.
Yeah.
It gave people a lot of exposure
Yeah.
to different stuff that
Sure.
you otherwise probably wouldn't even know was out there.
Exactly.
What
What was that on? That was on like Discovery or
Wasn't it History Channel?
I thought it was the History Channel.
I think it's History Channel, yeah.
I think it was one of those like
Back then, when they were a little bit more legit, had a little bit less focus on ancient aliens and conspiracy theories.
Okay. All right.
You got too far.
I love ancient.
I do too.
What's my man's name with the hair? It's like
George, something like that.
Georgian?
I just want to
Georgian.
take a picture with that guy, man.
Right?
He's got the cool. He is a rock star of ancient. He's the coolest guy ever.
Look at you.
Giorgio.
Like, there's no video here, but he's doing the hands thing from the ancient alien meme. He's like, I'm not saying it was alien.
Dude, you know what's coming back? One of my also favorite shows, Curse of Oak Island. Does anyone watch this
No,
series?
what's that? What's
Oh
that?
my god, it's so ridiculous, but it's the greatest thing in the world. So it's a reality show, but it's what's so interesting is that it's like these guys bought an island, and this island has this like history of buried treasure, right?
Okay.
Dating back to the 1800s.
Where is this island? Like, is it
It's
like
in like
off the coast of Maine, down in Florida? Give me some setting here.
you know what? That's a good.
Oh, you don't even
Oak
know? Is it a
Island?
tropical island?
No, it's not. It's
Oh,
it's
okay.
like Nova Scotia, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
Yeah,
cold as
yes,
shit.
cold, and some climate here is cold summer and stuff like that. So, Curse of Oak. So they're coming back, and this is the 8th season, 7th season, something like that.
Wow.
And so the whole point of the story is that they dig down, and they buried this treasure like 200 feet below the earth, right? 200 feet. So back in the 1800s, kids found these like oak platforms every 10 feet. And they would dig down, they find another one, 10 feet. Dig down, they got to 50 feet, and they say, below this one, 100-something feet or whatever it is, there's buried treasure. They found like this tablet that said this. And then when they started burying down, they released some kind of trap door, and the ocean water filled the whole thing. So since this, there's been like our United States presidents have tried to go there. They have all photographs. It's all, I can't believe
This is amazing. Yeah, I'm going to look that
Curse
up.
of Oak Island. And so there's been deaths associated with people finding this treasure. Like they go down the hole.
8 seasons in, no one's found the treasure yet. That's what we're getting at.
They found, well, first of all, that's true. Yes. To me, they haven't found shit. But it's not my money, so I'm like, keep going. You know what I mean? I don't care.
Take another shot at it.
Another shot, man. That's right. So they have all these experts come in and say, well, you know what, could be here and this and there and associated with this. And they've dug down. Like this guy who's doing this has got like, FU money.
Okay, sure.
He owns like he owns a winery in
This
Michigan.
is clearly his passion project.
He's like, I gotta do this. Him and his brother. His brother's like a retired postal worker. I think his brother tricked his rich brother into like
making this obsession.
Come on, man, you gotta do this with me. Whatever, it works out. So they're nice guys, and so they've been digging and burying. I mean, it's just crazy. They have found bits of wood like 200 feet. Like why would there be wood 200 feet down? They don't know if it's original or if it's other people looking for treasure and why all this stuff is associated. But this season, according to all the lead up, this is supposed to be like a very, very big season. And this guy went big. He's almost basically digging the entire island out of the freaking ocean. It's crazy.
Oh, this is nuts.
It's crazy. So I'm pretty excited.
I want to check that out.
Dude, Curse of Oak Island.
So here's the question. I just got to know. Do you care if they ever find the treasure?
You know what? I think what he thinks, the person who's doing this, it might have collapsed on itself. And it could be so old that they might just find bits and pieces of whatever it was at one point.
So like at this point, it's almost like it's not about finding the money. It's about the experience of like the archaeological dig.
That's what it is. It's that the story and of people figuring the story out. Like, did they think that it could be Shakespeare's plays could be there, could be like there's a lot of different things associated with this. They're talking about like knights of Templar, yes, brought gold over on ships.
Okay, of course they did.
And they've already done what's that the when you do the carbon dating of the wood and
that's what it's called. It's called carbon dating. Yes,
dates back to like the 1600s. Some of the wood that they found. So they're like, well, why would there be a wood? Why were they coming to this island? What would be the point of them coming to this island and building a pier and digging and doing stuff from back in the 1600s if they weren't burying stuff?
That's right.
As the legend says. So it's fascinating.
That makes sense, right?
Dude, check it out. You're going to be hooked.
I am.
And you're going to freak out when you start seeing the stuff they find. And there's this guy on this show. He's hilarious. He's a metal detector.
We're giving all this free publicity to him.
Yeah.
Is this on History Channel?
Yeah, it's on History, yeah. So
spend an awful lot of time watching the History Channel these days, don't you?
I enjoy it. I'm not going to lie. So this guy with the metal detector, man, he's hilarious. He's so funny, man. He's got like earrings and he's like this older guy with a British accent. He's freaking hilarious.
I can't wait to see it.
It's good, dude. Curse of Oak Island. It's good for the family too.
Oh, okay. Good. Noted.
Yes, family can watch it. But yeah, it's fascinating. I just it's interesting when I first watched it because I thought I'm like, dude, this guy's getting taken. Like this can't be real. Like none of this can be real.
That's how they got you.
That's how they got me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then he would do one thing.
You're like season 1, it's going to prove out to be all BS. And season 2 rolls around, it's like, oh, I'm starting to believe.
Dude, it's just fascinating that because there's nothing scripted. I mean, they try to. You can tell when some things are scripted and stuff, but they can't really script this because it's an actual. Like everything's factual, and they have a museum on the island. You can go visit the island, see the museum, and stuff like that. So it's fascinating. I hope they do find something, or at least to be able to tell a story. Because somebody certainly was at that island. What they were doing back in the day, I don't know if they were burying treasure or not, but it's interesting.
Right.
Well, when you get that much time invested too, you kind of got to stick it out. To see if
he's
they
got
ever do
he's got
find
the cost
something.
sunk into it already.
Millions upon millions of dollars. Because I had to look this guy up. I'm like, what does this guy own, man? This guy's got a lot of money. Because I thought it was like all kind of like
Well, I mean-
History Channel putting the money in it. This guy's a multi-millionaire. And
Wow.
he's just investing. Bought the island and just dumping money to find the story, really.
This is
More
great.
than anything. Yeah, it's
Strange.
fascinating.
Strange, though.
Strange, but I'm in.
Clearly, all in.
Clearly, yeah. November 5th. A couple days.
All right.
All right.
So back to a different kind of reality
Yeah,
TV. So you said, it's tough for you. You've had at least, 15, 20 fights under your belt at this point.
For
Probably
sure.
you're a veteran of it. You had started off, you said you did Taekwondo. I know you said you did a little bit of Kung Fu and whatnot. Now, at what point, you're already fighting MMA. At what point are you like, man, I need to add some wrestling, some jiu-jitsu, some additional training. Where does that all come in? And I know you said you were with Keith Hackney. Is that where you started getting your MMA training in at that point?
Absolutely. Keith had already competed in some of the earlier UFCs and that, and so his style was more of a catch wrestling style. With some.
He had he did Kempo with Tom Saviano.
That's right.
Yeah. So where I grew up, like near Addison and
That's right,
Bensville,
on North Avenue.
Yeah, right over
that's
there.
right. That's right. I know exactly where it is. Got the faded white tiger.
Yes,
Yeah.
White Tiger Kempo. Yeah, exactly. So Keith went to school with a bunch of my buddies. They went to Fenton High School over in Bensonville, and
I'm sure you got some great stories, man.
they got some great
legends.
stories. I'll let them tell them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so always had known about Keith, and then to see him on the Ultimate Fight or on the UFC rather was pretty cool. And then not that far, I don't remember if that was the first location, but were you at the Bloomingdale location of Hackney's Combat Academy,
I
or
was
was
at the 800 West Lake Street.
Okay, yeah,
we were right there in Roselle.
yeah, okay, that was Roselle. That's right.
So I tell you, so there's martial arts training, and then there's culture. Right, so like jiu-jitsu is a culture now. Our school has a specific culture. I'm sure your gym has a specific culture. Hackney's Combat Academy was a culture.
Okay,
And a lot of this stuff I won't talk about on air. But
sometimes safer.
hey, but let me tell you, man, and I'm sure you heard a lot from a lot of people that's trained there back in the days. It was all about toughness there. There wasn't a lot of jiu-jitsu, per se. I guess it's more of a catch wrestling, punch them in the face, take them down, pound them out, sprawling brawlers, that's
Right,
it. Stay on your feet and hurt them bad. And you had to be a tough guy to last there. I mean, it was a common occurrence, a couple of broken noses a week, different people, a few stitches. I actually wear all of my training and combat medals. You can see them everywhere.
Yeah.
Half of those I got them from practice.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really a tough gym. But I tell you, while training at Keith's place, you would definitely get tough there if you lasted. And we made a lot of friends there. So one friend that I had some other friends come up from Canada. And these guys that came up from Canada, Alric Doherty, who was partners with Everton out there. I forget his last name. But anyways, these guys had an extensive history in training professional athletes. They trained Sid the Jewel Vanderpool, who fought Bernard Hopkins in 2001 to a decision. They trained Carlos Newton.
Oh man, there's a name.
Oh yeah, that's old school. There when he was the welterweight champion of the UFC. What's the guy's name? Because I even went out there to Newmarket and stayed at their gym for a little bit and trained with them out there. They also Alric was also in the same gym with Lennox Lewis for 14 years.
Oh wow!
And until he went up through the Olympics and stuff like that. So when these guys came out to the U.S., they had business in the area. And Alric made Keith Hackney's gym his home. This is the guy that taught me what it was to be a professional athlete. Mm-hmm. Like, it's one thing to be a tough guy and take some fights, but it's another thing to be a professional athlete, to know how to train, to know, how and when to eat, to know when should I start cutting weight, how do I gain weight properly, what lifts do I do, what days of the week, how much do I run. This guy's a scientist. I still talk to him now. He's in his 50s and he's back in Canada, but we're still good friends. But he taught me what it was to be a professional athlete. And so I was very successful in a lot of fights at that gym. And I actually got, up until that point, I had even knocked out a few jiu-jitsu black belts. You know, I fought some really skilled guys in jiu-jitsu. I fought in Nova Scotia. Was it Jason McDonald? I fought him. I fought Chris Fontaine, who was with TriStar at the time in the early days. I fought a lot of these guys, and I had some very successful fights. But I tell you, man, I ran into one guy that was highly, highly skilled in the jiu-jitsu, and I actually got my arm popped. And at that point, I'm like, hey, you know what? It's something to this stuff. Right. And so you might remember Omar, who was also friends with Fight Chicks. Jake, he did the judo and stuff. Yeah, so Omar's the one who actually introduced me to Professor Christian Uflacker.
Oh, that's a small world there. Yeah, I mean, I met Omar, through Jake. We would go and watch fights together, and like just one time, completely at random, I was seated next to him. We were at like Crosstown Pub or something like that, doing like a Fight Chicks viewing party, and I'm sitting there next to him. And as he's watching the fight, he's like calling it out like a ring commentator, like, oh, he's gonna go low with the kick, and I'm like this guy definitely knows what's up. I'm so happy I'm sitting next to him.
Right?
So like that's how we got to talking and everything. Yeah, like, really great guy, very 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 knowledgeable about MMA, skilled in jiu-jitsu.
He was so skilled. He started taking jiu-jitsu before I did. And he was like, hey, man, I know you're looking for some jiu-jitsu. He's like, I got to introduce you to my buddy. And so then he introduced me to Professor Christian Uflacker. And that was it. The first day I met this guy, I knew we were going to be best friends, And so, he changed my game completely. Never did I anticipate that I would eventually end up becoming a jiu-jitsu black belt. I didn't see any of this. My only interest at that time was to get better skills so that I could win more fights, because this was my primary source of income.
Right.
As a professional athlete, it was my job to travel and fight and win fights, because you know how it works. You get so much to show up and so much more to win. Right. And so, definitely. I ended up staying in jiu-jitsu long enough to get a jiu-jitsu black belt. And so now that's my primary business. That's what I do 7 days a week. Right. I teach others jiu-jitsu, and it's a beautiful culture. I'm so glad I got introduced to it.
Where's your school located?
In Bolingbrook. We're located on the corner of Boughton Road and Route 53 at 435. Excuse me, 435 North Bolingbrook Drive in Bolingbrook, Illinois. Right. We got a beautiful facility, 8,000 square foot facility. Wow. We got AstroTurf. We got a full gym with weights, leg press, salt bikes, row machines. We got tons of jiu-jitsu mats. I got heavy bags, kickboxing area. It's a huge gym. Man. It's very nice. We can get it all done there. Having the exposure to what it is to be a professional athlete, plus having a traditional martial arts background, you can't just have a gym with, I got to have everything in there.
Right.
Because I can train you from whatever level you're looking. If you're looking to just do self-defense or get in shape, lose some weight, or even become a competitor. I want to have the capability to do it all. So we got everything.
And like the awesome thing about that is, and obviously several guys can say this, but like you've been there, you've done that, the workings of it, what it takes, the workings of behind the scenes as well, which I hear those stories all the time. It's like, oh wow, it's a separate skill set, just learning how to navigate the bureaucracy and whatnot of fight promotion.
You're absolutely correct. I was watching another podcast that you guys did. I was watching the one that you did with Jake, or listening to it. And you guys were talking about it, it being a skill to navigate, through these different places and these organizations. And saying, you're right, it's a whole nother set of skills that you have to have if you want to get anywhere. Another thing that I heard on there, which one of you guys, your first UFC was UFC 48?
Not me.
No, yeah, I started off pretty early.
No, I mean actually going to the UFC.
Going live to it?
Yeah.
I don't remember what the number was. We may have just been describing it, but my first actual UFC was downtown with Jake. That's actually, I think that's where I met Zito for the first time, because you were there with Gus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my first live UFC. I don't remember what that number was offhand.
Because or maybe I got twisted info, because you were doing something with some fantasy game or something, or some fantasy league with Dana White. Went to go meet Dana White.
No, that might have been something. Jake.
That was Jake talking. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that was
Jake
him.
was doing the. God, what was that called? I'm a terrible fan of our own show.
Many people.
Jake had that thing set up where it was like the fantasy football league, but for MMA, where guys were like betting and things like that.
And then he ended up doing it for the IFL too.
That was Jake that got that.
Yeah, I mean, I was starting to get hot on the collar. I'm like, man, I thought it was one of you guys. I know I listened to it, but that was. Cause I was just going to say that UFC 48. That was the first one that my wife went to live too.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so and then I ended up fighting 2 UFCs after that.
Right.
Yeah, right at the point where I was going to just stop. You know, I had so many fights already prior to this. I didn't feel like it was going anywhere.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, we got to start thinking about doing something else. So I had actually applied for the Hoffman Estates Police Department, took all the tests and did everything, passed everything, got put on a waiting list. And then lo and behold,
got the call.
UFC 51. I'm sitting at Outback eating a peach cobbler with a neck injury. You want to fight in the UFC this weekend? Well, yeah, sure. Well, I'll tell you what. You got 2 hours to get to the airport, and that's how the first fight took place. I had 2 hours to get to the airport. Get checked in, get on a flight, and the fight was 72 hours later.
Oh God! I mean, where were you? I mean, you were eating a peach cobbler. Where were you at weight wise?
Man, well, I tell you what. You know why it didn't even matter? Because I ended up fighting a weight class up. I had never fought above 170. Before that happened, I was either fighting the catch weights at 167 because I was a small welterweight, or either no more than 170.
Right.
And so they're like, okay, well, you're fighting David Loazo, and that's going to be at 185. It's going to be a middleweight.
Right.
And, they got cut weight to get to
for
185.
Sure. Oh God.
And so me, coming from a tough gym like Hackney's, I'm not saying it was the best thing to do or the wisest decision, but we had the mentality that fight anybody, any place, anytime. No way. We always use the parable. So some guy kicks your dog in his butt, smacks your wife. What are you going to do? You're going to say, hey, listen, come back in 8 weeks. Give me some time to train. And by the way, cut some weight.
Right.
We're going to fight them. And so when they made the offer, we got on a plane and we went out there. Yeah, that guy was tough, man. I think right after me, I think he fought Rich Franklin for the belt.
Rich Franklin, also not a small man.
Yeah, right? Oh, man. So.
Oh, man, that's so harsh. Like, to be in that situation, like to be in that headspace, you're thinking about getting out, and they suck you right back in.
That's right, man.
And I mean, like, I'm sorry, like numbers wise, you stayed in the game for a while after that.
I sure did. Well, that's when everything took a turn for me. My first 11 or 12 fights, pro fights, I went through them completely undefeated. And then right around 11, 12, I'm like, okay, well, we want to do some bigger shows. We've talked to some people. Nothing's happening. We got to start making plans for the future. Right. And then right then at that point is when everything started. Like I tell a lot of my guys, like, oh, I'm too old for this, too old for that. I didn't even hit on season 4. I was 33 years old.
Right.
Still in great shape and, eating right, training hard. I guess it all depends on your habits. You got good habits, bad habits. Right. That determines your longevity, not a birthday,
Right.
So things didn't pick up for me until later on in my career. That's why I ended up with so many fights.
Yeah, you've got over 30 fights.
Yeah. 36 wins, 16 losses, and 1 draw.
Yeah.
Yep. Total. That's a long time, man. And like I tell them, I wear all of the medals.
Absolutely. I'm proud of that, though. Listen. Just I've been told we're gonna get confirmation on air right now. Is it true? Chicks dig scars.
Yes.
There we go. That's all we needed to hear.
I always tell everybody I'm so lucky that my wife likes ugly guys.
She's the only one that matters, really. Yeah.
That's it.
She also trains.
She does. Yeah. She's a jiu-jitsu brown belt. She's probably going to be competing in Ibjjf coming up here. She's been in the ring. She's even fought on the card with some UFC veterans.
Bring her in here.
Got some retro posters of her and stuff up at the school.
That's fantastic.
And And this always cracks me up, man. Like I was talking about the male chauvinist earlier. So I used to take a ton of private lessons every week, and sometimes I'm just overwhelmed. So I try to push some off on her because she literally knows everything that I know. She's been in the fold with me for a long time. Right. She knows how to train. She knows how to teach the exercise. She knows how to do everything, the cleans and presses, deadlift, squats. When do you work out? How much do you work out? How do we add weight? What's the form? What's the technique? How much should I run? She knows, all of the stand-up techniques. Where should your hands be? She knows a lot of stuff. But, guys take one look and be like, no, I don't want to learn from a woman.
For me, and I know I'm like a tiny human being, but like I like learning from women and smaller practitioners a lot because they break it down. They have a good good technical understanding of it.
It has to be technical.
Yeah, who better to learn the technique from than somebody who can't muscle it, who can't can't be a meathead about it.
Nope.
I agree 100%. And I always tell people that too, that they look at me and they think I'm not a big guy at all, not with the overall scheme of things. The average male,
it's all relative here.
The average male in the U.S. is at least 6 foot 200 pounds. So you have to
that can't be right, can it?
Damn. Way off.
Hey, all we got to do is just look around when we go out in public. It's, wow, everybody's bigger than we are.
Well,
that's true.
You're way bigger than me and Zito, too.
So if you only rely on muscle, that's it, just muscle and attitude. Right. I tell people your attitude is not going to be enough to get you past the threshold of an ass whipping. Neither is your muscle.
Right.
So it will be time well spent to focus on being technically sound, because if you don't, the minute you run into somebody that's stronger than you are, or that gets a little bit angrier than you do, like that really matters, you're gonna take a beating.
Right, yeah.
So you have to rely on your skills. I agree with you 100%. You have to be technical. If you have any muscle, it's just a plus.
Right, yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
a plus.
For sure.
But if you're relying on it, get ready for the beating that's coming.
You're definitely going to run into somebody who's bigger and stronger.
Oh, for sure.
Always.
For sure. Probably every block you walk, every 20 feet you walk, you're going to meet somebody bigger and stronger than you.
Yeah. So she teaches at the school as well?
She does. We actually have an all-women's jiu-jitsu class. Some women don't like to be taught by guys, so that's all right. So she has an all-women's jiu-jitsu class that she teaches, and she teaches the kickboxing there also, and also a fitness class.
Awesome.
And then she helps me with the kids class, too. We got a lot of kids here, a lot of really good kids.
Right. Well, school survives on kids sometimes. I mean, really.
The schools do, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive.
You're not going to make it.
Those kids drive me absolutely bananas.
I don't even have that many kids in my kids. I teach a kids no-gi class, and like I don't have that many kids. Like some of the other coaches are dealing with like 30 kids at a time or something like that.
Man.
I'm like, oh God, like,
oh man,
are the other 20 kids like really well behaved, man?
I got a potty. I got to do this. Oh Lord.
That's one that I always find amusing. Like everything's like I don't run it super formal. Don't get me wrong, but like of all the things that they're like, hey, and like stick their hand up and whatnot, it's like you have to go to the bathroom, don't you? Yes, go to the bathroom before this becomes an issue. Hurry, put your shoes on.
It's so funny, but it's gratifying though, and I tell you, I think that it's improved me as a human being. Right, It's made me more patient.
It definitely tests your patience, doesn't it? Yeah.
I remember a long time ago, I had this buddy. Dion, and I was just having
Ricardo.
No.
Okay, just checking.
No, he wasn't a fighter or a martial artist or anything like that. I was just having some issues with some people that were just really making me impatient. So I pointed to the side. I say, "Hey, man, look, take a look over here." He said, "You see that girl right there?" He said, "You remember the girl in kindergarten who used to eat her boogers?" He's like, "Look, that's her right there." He's like, "You see that guy right there?" He said, "That's the guy who used to eat crayons and poop in his pants." So I asked him, I said, "Man, listen, what point are you getting at? What are you saying?" He said, "All I'm saying is these are the same people, just a little bit bigger now."
Right.
They grew up. But you know what, man? They're the same people. They're doing the same. Be a little more patient,
Yeah.
So it's helped out.
That's one thing that's because I've taught plenty before, and like dealing with adults that want to be there, wildly different experience than dealing with children. And it's really taught me like if I can't teach a technique in basically like 3 easy steps, I'm going to lose the room when it comes to the kids.
Oh, that's right, for sure.
Yeah. And then I realized, I'm like, sometimes I think I lose the room when I'm teaching the adults because I'm like, too deep on the explanation. They haven't had a time to practice it. They get antsy.
Get on with it.
Yeah, exactly. so yeah, like the kids have really benefited me in terms of making things more abbreviated, succinct. Yeah.
That's right, man. So it's a plus, man. I consider the teaching more training for myself,
for sure.
And then it's an old saying that if you can't teach it, then you don't know it.
Right.
So you got to work hard at it. It's not easy. But I was worried about the transition from being a hardcore competitor, always traveling someplace, fighting, looking for the next challenge and stuff like that. And I knew when everything was getting ready to come to a halt, and I was worried about how am I going to deal with the anxiety of adjusting, right? And I tell you what, man, I found that teaching, being a professor, being a coach, being a mentor to people has been much more gratifying to me. Right. It actually makes me happy. It makes me happy to watch people make progress, to help people reach some goals. I wanted to lose this weight, or I wanted to make my self-confidence better. It's actually more gratifying to me, and it helps me sleep at night.
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic.
I can definitely relate to that.
I mean, jiu-jitsu is a slow game.
It is.
Like that occasional phenom who we all hate. You know who you are.
Those are very rare, but it's just a slow and gradual, just very slow. You're not going to be, and everyone starts out at that same point.
That's right.
You watch it.
That's right.
Every time I teach class and we get someone new, I'm just like, this is it. I'd see if he stays with it, or she stays with it, and I just, let's learn the first thing. Let's learn how to snake or shrimp, whatever you want to call it. Escape your hip. And some people, I'm like, they got it right away. I'm like, oh man, there's hope.
Yeah.
And then you never see them again. You're like,
that's always the worst. Yeah.
Sucks.
Haven't you? I've been surprised over the years. Some people that I've thought wouldn't last
Stick with
at
it.
all end up being the longest staying, most dedicated, most improved. Like that's happened to me a few times. Some guys you see them walk through the door, you're like, I give them a couple months, and then before you know it, 3, 4, 5 years pass.
Yeah. He's a lifer.
Oh yeah, I've been surprised a few times like that.
I think I've said this before, but it's proven time and time again to seem to be true. It seems like the guys where you're like, oh, he's so good, he's got so much potential. Those are the guys that seem to quit earliest.
You're right.
Like it wasn't hard enough for him or whatever. Like a lot of times those guys quit at blue belt or sometimes even before blue belt. We had this one guy that came in. He was so good. He was picking everything up. He competed once. He won. Have not seen him since.
Wow.
Yeah. Like he just had to come in and show that he could do that, and that was enough. He proved to himself that he could step out there on those mats. He won his match, nice shiny gold medal. Everyone's like, awesome, congratulations. Like, this is amazing. Stops showing up.
I'm done.
You want to call him out on air?
No. I still have hope. Okay. Listen. If he's not showing up to class, the chances he's listening to the podcast are pretty slim in my mind.
Maybe one of his friends is listening to the podcast.
That's true. Maybe.
You're just being called out.
you know who you are.
That's right.
But then we'll have guys where they don't have that inherent grasp of it. It is a struggle, and for some reason, the fact that it's hard for them, they try that much harder. They stick with it. They grind it out. Those end up being the guys that stick around as lifers. I don't have any inherent talent at it.
Me either.
I've been doing this for years, and it's always been hard.
And always look forward to learning more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right about that, man. Yeah, that was me also. It's like, especially on the ground.
Didn't come natural to you at all.
It didn't come natural at all, man. It didn't. And I want you to think about the time that I started jiu-jitsu too. I had already fought in some of the largest shows in the world.
Right.
And so imagine going to a jiu-jitsu mat then after that, and people are like, oh, Saw that guy on television.
Right.
I'm going to tap his ass out tonight so I can tell my wife that I kicked the UFC fighter's ass.
Yeah. You got a target on your back. Yeah,
You're the
absolutely.
guy.
Oh, yeah. So you imagine coming in at that disposition and having to check the ego. You know,
Right, for
you
sure.
definitely have to check the ego. If they're all about wanting to make everybody know how great you are, well, you're starting at the bottom here. You're a white belt again. You know, I tell people, man, I got black belts on my wall. I got the Taekwondo black belt. I got the Judo black belt. I got a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt. And I tell you that the biggest lesson was starting over at all of them.
Right.
Starting right back at white belt at all of them. That gives you such thick skin, you know.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever competed in IBJJF?
I have not.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
You ever thought about it?
You know what? I have thought about it, and I'm not going to say that age is an issue because it's not. What I will say is that we have expanded 3 times in the last 3 years, and so being able to dedicate time to getting ready for something. Because if I go compete, I don't want to go and compete just to say I was a competitor. I want to go and win. So this is what I'm thinking about doing. And anybody that's listening to me, man, don't give me no trouble, okay? Because that's you said you were going. So I'm really thinking about, man, going to one of these Masters Worlds in Vegas.
Yeah.
It's
Just
been
because
there. It's a beautiful time.
Is it? You've been there?
Yeah.
I've been
Tell me about it, man.
Here, let me hit you up. So for years and years, I've had people be like, oh, you should do IBJJF. You should do IBJJF. I'm like, I don't like those rules. I'm never going to do it. End up at a school that's very focused on IBJJF competition. My first ever IBJJF competition, Masters World as a purple belt.
This is great, man. Tell me about it.
It was a blast. It was so. We've sung the praises of it before. One of the most organized tournaments that's run. Vegas is an amazing venue for it.
I mean, they've got 4,500 competitors.
That was last year,
and it runs like a machine.
Yeah,
oh,
it's
that's
incredible.
awesome.
Yeah, like it's not uncommon for other, not going to name names, for other tournaments to be running hours behind. Like people start getting weirded out when it's like a few minutes.
Hurry
difference.
up and wait.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, it runs like clockwork. The unique sort of thing. And it hasn't always been this way. This is how it's started to trend over the last couple of years. So Masters World has become such a big. It's actually the IBJJF World Master Jiu Jitsu Tournament.
Okay.
But yeah, Masters Worlds is what everyone calls it.
Right.
But so it runs simultaneously now with 3 other tournaments. Okay, so you've got, I'm going to mess one of them up at least. You've got the IBJJF Kids International Open, I think. Yeah. So all the kids competitors can go. You've got the Las Vegas Open, which is just a normal IBJJF open format tournament. Okay, anyone, any belt level can compete in that. Doesn't matter age group or anything. And then I believe they also have a third competition, which is like the IBJJF International Novice or something like that. It's for like white belts.
Oh wow.
So you've got 4 tournaments running in the same weekend. It's like it goes from like Wednesday to Sunday or Wednesday to Saturday rather. It's an absolute blast. If you're gonna pick like a tournament to travel to Vegas is pretty cheap. Staying in Vegas is pretty cheap. I mean, maybe not if you're gambling and partying all night, but the actual hotel expenses and whatnot are cheap. It's easy to get around. It's beautiful weather. Like it's ideal. And it's every August. I can't recommend it enough.
Well, that's great.
And the great thing is, like if you want to make it a big thing at your school, because there's so many tournaments running simultaneously, you could literally take and make a weekend of it with a bunch of your competitors
that's great.
of any age.
That's great.
Well, it's more of like a week of it.
Well, okay, sorry, yeah, true.
The only problem with it is because
how long
it is.
Right.
It's because some people are going to go on Wednesday, some people are going on Saturday, some people are going on Thursday. So that's where it gets a little tricky.
Yeah. You've got to make time for it, obviously.
Yes.
But this last year we brought 4 or 5 kids to compete in the kids division.
Oh, that's great.
We had a guy compete in the novice division. We had some guys that they're under 30, so they can't do Masters Worlds, but they can do the Vegas Open. It was a really I wish more tournaments were like that, where there's like a big tournament and then a smaller tournament around it. It's kind of cool that way. Yeah, but when you go to Nogi Worlds, it's just Nogi Worlds, for example.
Right, yeah.
Oh, that is awesome, man. So it sounds like you can get a nice group together, go down there, maybe make a week of it, make a few days of it.
Yeah, when like my initial exposure to it, I was like, oh, okay, this is like the old guy tournament. You know, only old guys are going to be there and whatnot, which is fine. I'm one of them too, obviously. But yeah, and then now there's kids there. There's adult divisions.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's a good time. It's a really good time. Zito's going to go to the next one, right?
I may.
You may
We'll
be healed
see.
by that, hopefully.
I'm healed.
No, he's lying. People. He exists in a state of constant injury.
It'll be a different world. And when is it? August?
Yeah, it's August again.
Are you and I in the same division?
Oh.
It could happen.
Yep. It could happen, Javi.
I'll go down to Rooster. I'll duck you.
Okay.
Actually, why don't you compete at Rooster?
I could compete at Rooster.
Lose 2 pounds or whatever it is.
I walk around,
tiny ass bastard.
I walk around like 136.
That's great, man.
Yeah. So I can easily get down to. I mean, not easily, but a little bit of discipline to get down to Rooster.
Yeah,
I did it before.
Stop eating acai for every lunch.
Maybe that. Yeah.
Sounds good, though.
I know.
Acai is delicious.
Oh, it
day.
is.
I ate a bowl of acai. I have it right there in the freezer.
Where do you get it from? Where do you find it? I know they were selling at Costco for it, then they stopped.
Yeah. So Target has it.
What?
Yeah.
Just the
frozen. Yeah.
yeah,
frozen.
that's great.
So I have it here in my freezer. I've got the granola and I've got the almond butter. Yeah. Paul Maloney, our friend of mine and old co-host of the show here, he makes fun of the way I do it. So, because I don't have a blender or anything like that to make it like the way they do it. So
I want to point out you could buy a blender. You could resolve this issue permanently at any point in time.
100%. Here's the problem. I'm busy. I only have X amount of time to do X amount of things. So making acai has to be very efficient. So I take it out of the freezer. I run upstairs here, put it under some hot water.
Okay.
Warms it up a little bit. I try to crush. It's still too hard to crush. So I have a tiny hammer. Okay. I have a tiny hammer. I put it in there and I pound the acai inside the bag. It blends up really nice. Open it up.
This is not blended at all.
Pour it in the bowl. Put my granola. Put my almond butter.
Chunks of acai
and I'm
everywhere.
good to go.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's delicious. I love it. Every day.
I get to cheat. So yeah, we have acai at the gym.
You do. I saw that photo you sent me.
Beautifully blended, absolutely delicious.
Luis and Tiago.
Yeah, Luis and Tiago. We have it at both gyms now.
They have an acai truck.
What?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
acai,
great.
the superfruit.
That's what the business is called. Acai the superfruit, right?
Yep.
That is awesome.
And yeah, so we've got literally a freezer full of little acai bowls pre-scooped out and everything. All you got to do is take it out. We let it like you don't want to eat it right out of the freezer.
Sure,
it's
yeah.
just a little bit too cold in that freezer.
Right.
So you just let it sit for a little bit.
Go to a few rolls. Come back.
Do 2 rounds.
That's it.
Come back. Normally I can't have it because I'm on my diet.
Right.
But I go off my diet after I compete for a little bit, and with Halloween in the mix there.
Yeah.
Had to steal some kids' candy.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
But yeah, so that's become quite popular.
So you gotta get some acai by your gym.
I'm gonna have to, man.
Yeah,
that's
clearly
awesome.
the move.
Step it up. You gotta step it up. Everybody's gotta step it up.
I gotta catch up.
That's gonna be Zito's new qualification when he goes shopping around for a gym when he's out of town or whatnot. He's like, yeah, I'd like to visit your gym. I need to know, do you have showers? Yes. Okay, check. Do you have acai? No.
Okay, I'm not coming.
Oh well. Yeah.
I'm through with
Don't
you.
forget elevated mats.
Elevated, sprung floors.
I like the elevation. I like the elevation.
Oh man, this is funny.
So spoiled. Here we're talking about Hackney's Combat Academy.
Right.
Oh man,
I could never survive. No.
You would have survived.
I didn't.
You're a tough guy.
So in the 90s, I started jiu-jitsu. I started JKD in 91,
Okay.
92. And then when this came out, UFC, we incorporated jiu-jitsu. And my instructor was like, okay, we're doing jiu-jitsu. And I was like, okay. So I bought a gi. That's it up on the wall there.
Oh wow, that's your first gi?
Yeah. That's 93, 94.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that crazy?
93, 94.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even think I knew what jiu-jitsu was at that time.
They didn't either.
We didn't either, right? we were going off of whatever we were doing. Yeah. So I hated it. I was smaller than I am now, and I'm going against people. So
You see that picture he showed you before?
I saw
That's what he looked like
the
back
Rambo
then.
knife. Yeah.
So, I was very young. So the guys that I trained with were all about 7 years plus older than I was. My girlfriend at the time, her brother got me involved, and I was 15 years old at the time, and he's
That annoying wiry kid.
Right.
At the gym.
Oh, man.
There's always one.
And he's like, you're coming to train with me. And they're all, like I said, 7 year plus. So I was so little, and I got these giant guys on me trying, and I'm
Smothering you.
I hated it. I went through the motions. I didn't like it as much. I liked sticking with Kali and Thai boxing and Wing Chun. I loved all that stuff.
You know what's nuts, man, is that when you say Jeet Kune Do, I think because in my library at home, I have all of these awesome books on different martial arts and stuff
Black
like
and white
that.
cover, Bruce Lee, Tao Jeet Kune
Tao
Do.
Jeet Kune Do. I have it.
Everyone does.
And
Yeah.
you know what's crazy is that a lot of people that haven't seen that book or really don't understand Bruce Lee's philosophy doesn't understand how he utilized a lot of these techniques, like jiu-jitsu type techniques, along with the eye jabs and foot sweeps and stuff. Like if you look through the book, a lot of the hand-drawn pictures.
Yeah, he's got arm bars.
Chokes, ankle locks, and then if you, I was just having this conversation a few days ago with somebody. Look at his movies. I tell them, Bruce Lee knew jiu-jitsu. They're like, no, he didn't. Well, look at you. Have you seen his movies? Right. Well, yeah, I've seen all of his movies. Okay, so and Enter the Dragon, he catches Sammo Hung in an arm lock, right?
Yes, he does.
They've got the they call them spheres, the Kempo gloves.
That's right.
Yeah.
He chokes Chuck Norris to death with a guillotine in Return of the Dragon. Yeah. He gets caught in another arm lock in a Chinese Connection, right? That's right.
Bites his way out.
Guy, Fist of Fury, or AKA the Big Boss. He double legs his guy, mounts him, grounds and pound, all jiu-jitsu type techniques in every single one of his movies.
Yeah, Judo Gene LaBelle was a big influence back in the day on Bruce Lee.
Legendary.
Yep.
That's something else, man. It's like, unless a person has 3 arms and 6 legs, it's only so many things you're going to be able to do with the human body. But everybody spends so much time putting a tag on it. Well, what is that called in this language? Or what is this? I told one guy a long time ago, of course I train judo. I like judo. And they ask you, what are all of these names? What is this called? What is that called? Even in jiu-jitsu, what is this called? What is that called? Well, I call it a head and arm choke.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, what is this?
That's it.
Well, I call it a trip. I call it a foot sweep. What are you talking about? If you base your knowledge of a martial art on your ability to speak a different language,
right,
then you might not get anywhere.
Right. I feel personally attacked.
Yes.
I am that guy.
Yeah. I mean, I teach a fundamentals class, and a lot of people ask me, I'll show them a sweep or a choke or whatever.
What's that move called?
I'm like, it's a choke. I'm choking you. That's a choke.
I see Mineko's influence is strong upon this one.
It is. Because you know what? I want you to learn the technique and just don't worry about naming and this and that.
My primary concern with it is always the coaching aspect.
Of course.
Yeah. If I name a move, if it has a name that is known in the gym, obviously it's useless if I say it and you don't know what I mean.
Right.
But if I name a move and I'm able to coach you and say, do that move succinctly, then it's beneficial. If I say that and it causes confusion, it's not benefiting anyone.
If I'm yelling choke,
squeeze his neck.
Right. You're going to be squeezing. You're not be going for a footlock at that point.
Right. But are you asking for a cross collar choke? Are you asking for a loop choke? Do you want a guillotine? Should I take it back and rear naked choke him?
Choke him.
Come on, man.
Wherever your arm is.
I need more instruction than that.
You do? I know you don't.
Sometimes. It depends.
Yeah, I forget which Pride it was. I was watching an old Pride, and I'm pretty sure it was Master Henzo, and I think it could have been Stephen Quattros. I think it was Stephen Quattros, and I forget who it was fighting, but I vaguely remember this conversation. So Stephen Quattros was like, "Oh, well, look there. He did one of those chokes." He said, "What do you guys call that in jiu-jitsu?" And I'm pretty sure it was Master Henzo. And I'm pretty sure he was like, "I don't understand the question. What do you mean?" He said, "Well, what do you call that?" He said, "We call it a choke."
That's it.
Call it winning.
We call it a choke. That's it. Doesn't matter.
Man, it's so funny, man.
You and your 10th planet, guys. What are you talking about? Javier.
It's not just that. That is an influence. It's not just that.
Oh, man.
It's all right, man.
Yeah.
It's its own culture.
Right.
I mean, naming convention. I mean,
But everyone does know a couple of the names. Like,
Yeah.
you know the guillotine choke,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
You know the rear naked choke or the matalion,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. The lion
You know
kill.
that one.
That's right.
Right. You probably know 5 or 6 different cross chokes, but you don't know which one he's asking for.
right.
Right. Ever.
Never.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like that's where
But
that's where it can
Planet
be useful.
also eats themselves. They start changing names as well.
That-
like they have like 3 or 4 names for the same move. Or like, I
or
call
a
it
subtle difference. Yeah. Sometimes
Right, yeah.
again, sometimes when the naming becomes a problem, then it's not helping you coach anymore.
Exactly.
And that's why you have to strike that correct balance.
Right.
So I got a question for you. So you guys teach, coach, you do all of this, mentor. Have you ever had somebody tell you that they invented a new move?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Or they created something?
All the time. Depending on how much I like them, I may play along.
Oh, that's great, man. I never would have thought of that. Oh, man. So wait a minute. So martial arts have been depicted on hieroglyphics in caves thousands of years old all around the world, and it took you.
No, he's got this.
It took you and your 30 years of being alive to school the entire history of the planet. Great job, man.
Every once in a while, though, you do get surprised, and they show you something, and you're like, shit, that is new. I've never, like, maybe you didn't invent it, but I haven't seen it either.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I as a young man, I would say stuff like that all the time. And eventually I came to the conclusion that I should not say that. But I will say, like, hey, I figured this thing out, or I discovered this while I was rolling. Like
That's right.
Yeah, because for sure somebody's probably done it before me, even if I've never seen it before. But the worst thing is when you show somebody and somebody else goes, oh, yeah, I know that. It's called this. I'm like, oh.
Okay. Well, all right.
Yeah, but that's what's so that's also very fascinating because the movements are so how do I put this? Because there's some things that I do with my body that I move a certain way and I capture that just feels so right. But I know no one formally taught me that. It's just
all right, you figured it out just like everyone else did.
Just like everyone else did.
That's
I
right.
mean, not like I don't invent any move in jiu-jitsu, but my body seems to gravitate towards certain movements, and I know I wasn't formally taught those, and it just works. And everyone I roll with, they also have a little different.
Yeah,
that's why when
your personal game.
Your personal game, right? That's why when people say, find your own jiu-jitsu,
That's
you're gonna
right.
find it. As a white belt, you have no idea what the fuck that means. You're like, I don't know what to find my own jiu-jitsu. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, dude.
I didn't know I lost it. Find it where?
Start searching YouTube immediately when you get home.
Exactly. And then it's because it's just such a, like, going back, it's so slow. The whole thing is so slow, and you just eventually, like, when you're at blue to purple and to brown, and you're just like, wow, and then you're like, you look back and you're like, man, how am I doing? Everything's so, I don't know, it's becomes so much simpler, and you can see things more clearly.
It's
Your
true.
body just moves. It becomes second nature. You don't have to think as much.
See, it's that ground sensibility. That's why we don't do katas and get belts, because you got to spend that time, making those movements, making those mistakes, figuring stuff out. And I think that's a major part of the jiu-jitsu journey. And I always tell people that too, is that, okay, my job as a professor is to show you the fundamentals, to teach you the techniques, but we're all going to be different in some way because some of us are taller, shorter, heavier. Some of us have some restrictions, physically. So our styles are going to be a little bit different, but like you said, finding your own jiu-jitsu is spending that time. It's time in, getting skin in the game. That's it. So it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've always felt that's like a big part of the art in the martial art. It's it's your own personal expression of it. Sometimes when I talk about it, sometimes analogies help people. Sometimes they confuse them. You never know. But I was talking about it one time with a student, and I likened it to language proficiency. And like even though you are coming to me to train jiu-jitsu as like a 30-year-old dude, basically like a newborn in terms of jiu-jitsu. You don't have any language proficiency in the art of jiu-jitsu right now. Right. And as you go through your belt levels and your stripes and you learn, you're learning to speak the same language as the rest of us. And eventually, you know, at whatever belt level, you're going to be completely independent, and I don't need to teach you any new words, and you're going to develop your own way of speaking about jiu-jitsu.
That's right.
And that's you expressing the art that we all do.
That's something else, man. That's why, like you said, man, a fighter, you're just as good as your last fight, right? And you can only do that for a certain amount of time. But being a martial artist, this is a lifelong journey. That's why that's why I always tell people that you were a fighter, because I don't knock the fight culture. I don't. Why do I stick to a traditional background? For that reason. You can only fight for so long, but martial arts is a continual journey that you're going to spend, the rest of your life trying to figure things out for yourself, try to find out who you are and where you fit in with this. So you said it best, art, martial arts, self-expression. So it's fun. You said something else that was funny too. You said constant state of injury. Do you ever remember a time throughout your years of training that you didn't have an injury?
I was a young man once.
I can't remember. Can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember what my first like serious injury was where I was like, oh, that's never going away. Yeah. Or it's just gonna, it's gonna be a nagging pain forever. But yeah, I was, like I got pretty serious about this stuff at like 22.
Okay.
And I'm 42 now. So for just about half my life, yeah, that's just been the state of things. Whether it was my hands hurting from gripping the gi in judo,
tennis elbow,
tendonitis, or my one bad shoulder. There's always something.
I thought about it because like you're talking about the new guys, the newbies and stuff like that. And I'm not mentioning no names, man. I had one guy tell me he's going to go see a doctor because he was sore.
Oh my!
And I'm thinking, man, listen, hey. Like, okay, 1%, 2% of your body has a nagging injury. You still got 98% that you got to take care of. Mm-hmm. But that's just some old school stuff right there. Yeah. You know how we came up. Right. Put some tape on it, put some ice on it, get back on the mat, you'll be
Rub
fine.
some tussin on it.
Do they even make that anymore?
I don't actually know.
Oh, that's great.
I'm sure they do.
Oh, that's great, man. That's the 80-year-old great grandma. Yeah, put some tussin on that. Rub that stuff in. You'll be all right.
Have a hot lemonade and some lemon. but like that's one of the things though. Like you don't know what you could do until you've done it. Like in the beginning when we all start off, everything's hard, everything hurts.
Yeah.
Like if you're not coming at it from like a wrestling background or something, like it's really, really different from anything you've ever done.
For sure.
The challenge of like shrimping or doing a forward roll might be really hard for you depending on your athletic background, let alone sparring.
Oh, right. Man.
Yeah. Now it's time to roll? Okay, what does that mean? And you're just like, are you claustrophobic? No, you'll be fine. Oh, now you're claustrophobic. Yeah, now. Exactly.
How many freakouts have you seen on
I've seen some pretty bad ones.
That's great.
Lesson learned. Everyone who's listening, learn from my lesson. The first thing I teach people, usually the first thing I ask before I let anyone roll is, do you have any injuries I need to know about? Okay, because that can be a serious concern. I don't want to be grabbing something that's sore or whatnot. But then I ask, has anyone taught you how to tap out? And then I explain, if they don't know, because I don't want them to have an impression of what it is, I explain, what that means, that it goes both ways, and how to respect it and whatnot. Because, we had a guy who had a panic attack on bottom mount, and the guy I was rolling with had just never seen that before. Like he was more experienced, but he had never seen that before at all. So the guy's like frantic freaking out. That guy on bottom didn't know to tap. So like he's just in like full animalistic panic mode, and the other guy's like, "Oh, he's just trying really hard. I'll hold him down harder."
That's great.
And he doesn't know because he's clearly not in pain because he's not putting a submission on him or anything yet.
Right.
But yeah, like that was a bad day.
That sucks.
Well, you saw me screaming. No, man, a tap.
Well, he wasn't actually screaming. But he was breathing so hard,
yeah.
like borderline hyperventilating,
Yeah.
and I was like, dude, get off of him. Yeah. Are you okay? Do you need to get some water?
Right.
Breather? Yeah.
You just said the magic word.
Yeah.
So you guys use that too.
Oh yeah.
So we have a conversation that we have all the time at the gym. You know, some guys are really tough guys. They've had fights outside. They've had fights inside the cage, on the streets, everywhere. And so this is a little joke that we have at our gym, right? Whenever you accidentally mess somebody up and you didn't expect that outcome, you're like, oh, I'm sorry. Why don't you make me do that? Can I get you some water? For years, a guy gets hit by a truck, all from water. You been shot 17 times. Hey, can I get you a cup of water? You're being choked. You're being passed out. Here, man, let me get you some water.
Makes everything better.
Gives them something to concentrate on other than their misery.
Exactly.
Hey, you know what? Hey, you're going to need stitches for that, but I'll be right back. Let me get you some water. That's funny. You just said it. You guys do the same stuff.
I guess, yeah. Where did I pick that up?
Yeah.
That's just in the culture.
I gotta start using that now.
Oh, it's great.
I like that.
Oh, there you go. You've been taught. You learned something new today.
Yes, I'll bring it to the school.
Hey, so now it's an inside joke. So
It can't be that inside.
Not that inside anymore.
Hey, listen, yeah. You hear somebody complaining, and whining. Hey, can I get you some water?
Yeah. It'll make it better. It'll help you out.
That and like the proper way to call a timeout. If you're a little tired, you need a little bit of extra rest time. You untie the drawstring of your pants. I gotta fix my pants. They look fine. No, man, a little loose. I gotta hold on.
Oh, you did it. So here's the other one.
Oh, my belt. Belts.
No, here's the other one. So you're about to get tapped out. You're about to get submitted.
I know what's coming.
And right at the point that it's there, you're like, okay, now put your hand here.
That is such a dick move.
That is.
Yeah.
All right, you know what? You got it. Okay, wait. All right, there it is. You got it. You got a good job.
I've never had anyone do that to me.
Coach you through your inevitable victory.
Right? Yeah, never. Thank God. Thank God it's never happened.
Oh, it's gonna happen, man. Or I like this.
I was going to say, usually when I see it happen, typically, sometimes it's because the other person is the smaller person, oftentimes a woman. This has to happen to all the females, like at least once, I swear to God.
For sure.
I've seen it happen so many times. The other thing is when it's clear, like the higher belt is about to die to the 4-stripe white belt. Like he's got the most killer Americana in the gym. He's an absolute savage with it. It's his one move, and it's like, yeah, no, that's good. Keep going. You almost got it. Oh, good job,
Good
bro.
job. Yeah, you did it. Can I get you some water? Oh, man.
Yeah,
that's so great.
I've definitely witnessed that at a couple of different gyms a few different times in my day.
This is a last one here. So you can never win enough or win the right way in the eyes of some people, man. Mm-hmm. And so I've gotten this periodically over the years. Yeah, you did all right there. But now I'm going to show you where you made your mistake.
Oh, yeah. The post-training coaching. Yeah.
This is where you messed up.
Right.
What are you talking about? I messed up.
I just armbarred you. Well, you could have done better.
Right.
Yeah, you should have pinched your knees right about here. Right. You messed up right there.
Yeah, it was a good armbar, but it could have been more technical.
Yeah, you want some water?
There is one that's like super common in the community that I act like. Maybe I'm still a dick about it, but I actually like defend this one because I'll ask afterwards, like, was that a choke or a crank? What did you tap to? I want to know if I had like a tight. End of the day, I don't care so long as you tap, but I want to know. Right. And so I hope it doesn't come off as me being salty. Sometimes after somebody will try to put a choke on me and it's a crank, I'll be like, just so you know, that was a crank.
That was a crank, yes.
I tapped to it. We're all good and everything, but you weren't actually choking me. And I'm like, does that sound like I'm like making excuse? Like, does it sound to them like I'm just like, oh, you're just strong, man. That wasn't very I'm like, no, I just want you to know.
I do that. I do the same thing too. So, I don't normally tap to BS, I don't like to do that. I go.
Well, it's true. Yeah, it's true.
Especially if it's a choke, I'm gonna go deep.
You're gonna go out.
Yeah, not go out, but I'll go deep.
Have you been out
deep.
recently?
I was out a few months ago.
A few months ago.
Hey, that means you're training hard.
You're fine. You're fine. You've recovered by now.
I have for sure recovered. Yeah.
So you guys have seen the guy squeezing the other guy's head. I've seen this literally.
Not a choke at all.
Squeezing its face or squeezing something to the point where it hurts, and then the other person taps, and then they say, "Hey, that was not jiu-jitsu." And I've heard this reply, "Well, you tap to it."
Right. Well, it fucking works.
Tell me you've heard this, right?
I've been on the receiving end of that and the giving end.
I've been on the receiving end of that too. Yeah.
Squeezing your face.
No, actually, it was compressing my neck. They couldn't choke me, so they pushed my head down
into your chest,
into my chest, and they were on top, like from my back. And I'm like, that really, because it was more of a catch move,
right? Yeah, for sure.
And I'm like, that sucked.
It's not jiu-jitsu.
No, that wasn't. He goes, no, that was catch. He told me, hey, 100% told me it was catch. I'm like, all right, thanks. We're doing jiu-jitsu, bro.
Adam Redzovic says it well. If it worked, it was jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. That was Muay Thai. What?
I'm gonna haul off and just shin you to the head. Sorry.
I straight up roundhouse kicked a kid today in jiu-jitsu. I'm not gonna lie.
Did you?
Yeah, I leg kicked him. He deserved it. No, we were messing around.
Okay.
I didn't just like straight up like, oh yeah, no, nice double leg attempt. Wham! No, it was little bit of playful roughhousing.
Oh, okay.
But I knocked his feet out from under him. So I might have playhouse roughhoused him just a little too much. He's an adult now. It's okay.
Or what about the guy that, at our gym, we plan ankle locks. So you don't want to surprise anybody. If you're rolling with somebody, say, listen, we're ankle locks in play, knee bars, we're going to do that just so we're on the same page here. Not, okay, we're just going normal.
Surprise!
Yeah, that's it. Oh, dude, that's so funny when you see that.
Do you do heel hooks in the gi?
If they know it's coming. So you got a couple purple belts, brown belts, so they want to do them. Have a mutual understanding.
Yeah.
Don't surprise your buddy.
Right.
So and it's always funny when you see that surprise happen.
Yeah.
Somebody gets frustrated, getting a little bit competitive, then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere with no discussion.
Right. we had a kid come in. He was like a military kid, and he came in. I think he had a Sambo background, and he's a blue belt. And he just starts trying to heel hook people. We're like, whoa, dude, what you doing? No one knows what you're doing. Stop. And he wasn't very proficient in it, but once I saw, like, I was watching,
he was reaching
him,
for it.
Reaching for it, I'm like, bro, whoa.
Right. But like,
take it easy.
At most gyms, not all, because I do know some where it actually is posted. At most gyms, that's not posted anywhere. That conversation is not had.
Never had.
You're right.
This happened at LCCT. I'm not going to shout his name out or anything. But like, of all people, I had to be the one to be like, dude, you're a white belt. I need you to not be heel hooking. Where did you learn that? That was not a good heel hook. Come to me. I will show you how to do this properly.
Right.
And then you can never do it again.
Right.
That's right.
Except with this list of people, because reasons. But like, I thought about it. I'm like, man, you sign a waiver, you sign a contract, but at no point in time do I think there's any gym rules listed anywhere where it's like, don't do a heel hook. If you don't know what that is, definitely don't do it.
Right.
And this, that, and the other thing. It's just sort of assumed that through the process, you're going to learn what is acceptable, what is unacceptable, so on and so forth.
Just made a great point. I'm going to have to post that up somewhere.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like whenever I go to a new school, either because I'm visiting a new area or I'm there for a seminar or everything, like there's certain things that now, and years ago I didn't know because I wasn't a jiu-jitsu guy. Years ago I didn't know that you even had to ask that kind of stuff. But now I have like this mental checklist of things I like to check and be like I'm a brown belt now, so most of the time I go to a school, it's going to be acceptable that I throw ankle locks, toe holds, and knee bars against other brown belts.
Right.
But sometimes I go to a school and it's like, are we rolling at my level so that your blue belts and purple belts and white belts, like, are they expected to know how to defend the stuff that I can do in my division? Or do I have to lower my...
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what's the coach's perspective? And sometimes I get told, no. Like, that's how we teach them how to defend the stuff is we let the higher belts do it to them. And other guys are like, no, keep it to only the stuff they know.
Okay.
And it's like, oh.
It's a mixed bag, yeah.
Yeah. There's no there's like no universal answer. No. And then, of course, like I said, like I teach and train at a gym where we throw heel hooks in the gi, like that's just normal. Don't even have to ask the question. Everything goes. It's the Wild West.
Right. Including shin kicks here, right?
Yes, very clearly. Like, occasionally you just have to shin a kid across the room. That's all.
Understandable, man. Sometimes you got to put them in their place,
That's right.
In my defense, he was attempting to stab me with an imaginary knife. This was an appropriate response.
I see.
Oh, yeah. You have to do this. This is great, man.
Well, Gideon, I know families out there. We'll wrap it up.
It did go deep into the weeds there for a minute.
So where can people find you?
You can find me at 435 North Bolingbrook Drive in Bolingbrook, Illinois, 60490. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook, Gladiador Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And it's Gladiador, not Gladiator, Gladiador. Yeah.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah. I like that logo.
Hey, thank you.
Fantastic.
I've had these tattoos for over 20 years here.
Really?
The same one. Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
Well planned.
I'm going to show you something out there that you're going to freak out when you see what I have out there.
I can't wait, man.
You're going to see it. More surprises in the office I think we might
you
be
might
brothers.
actually be related.
We might be related.
Yeah.
We might be.
We might be. It's kind of,
Ancestry.com.
Yeah. Right. All right, Gideon, it's been a pleasure, man.
Hey, it's been a complete pleasure, man. Thank you, guys. Right. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
You guys
man.
are the best, man.
We'll
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. For more information about Grappler Union Podcast, you could visit us at our website at grapplerunion.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Grappler Union. Please like us on Facebook. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And all of our episodes are available on our YouTube channel. Say what?
Be sure to subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe to all that shit. You got to do another take, right?
Oh.